guys, in an odd twist this week, I'm going to actually give you a somewhat informative video. I know from doing author events and panels and things like that, one of the most popular questions that readers have is, what are authors' thoughts on their book covers, or how did they come up with the design for their book covers, or how much involvement did authors have in the design of their book covers. We know we're not supposed to judge books by their covers, but we all do it. Even librarians do it. I used to have a job working for a book distributor as a sales rep. I did not even bring actual books with me. I brought photocopies of the covers of books, and that's how I sold the books to libraries. We have cover reveals for our books. We post our book covers everywhere. We use them as our avatars when we're on social media. Book covers are huge. But in traditional publishing, authors have little to no say or involvement in the design of their book covers. And I'm going to use my first book cover, Popular, as an example, and to show that this might not be such a bad thing after all. Okay guys, here's Popular. This is my first book, and this is what the cover ended up looking like. See that there? This is not what the cover started looking like, and in fact this was not what the title of the book was originally. Popular was originally called The Balderdash Semesters. I sold this book in 2009 to Flux, a small publisher based out of Minnesota. Flux is the YA imprint of Llewellyn. Somewhere along the way, someone, or some group of someone's more likely, decided that the title The Balderdash Semester sounded too old-fashioned, and they wanted to change it to something more hip and relevant. And so this group of someones decided that there was no more hip and relevant name than the title The Sabrosa Semesters. When my editor shared this news with me, I started asking the same questions you're probably asking yourself right now. What? And how do you spell that? And what does it mean? So my editor kindly launched into an explanation that involved Latin roots and obscure legal terms. Sabrosa is a Latin phrase that means literally under the rose. It's spelled S-U-B-R-O-S-A and is often used as two separate words, although in the title The Sabrosa Semesters they did have it as one word. It's some sort of obscure legal term that refers to something that is secret. I'd be willing to wager good money that there's some sort of law school dropout intern that was involved in this whole retitling fiasco. But The Sabrosa Semesters became the new official title for the book. And anytime I met someone and they asked me about my forthcoming book, as people like to do, I not only had to give the tongue twister title, I then had to give my own little mini lecture on Latin roots and obscure legal terminology. Let's just say it got old kind of fast. This was my first book and I was just excited to have one coming out. But taking my mind off concerns about the title, my editor did ask me if I had any suggestions or ideas for the design of the cover for the book. The cover! That shiny, beautiful, exciting thing that would draw readers to my... Let me just stop right here and say that being asked for suggestions about the cover is actually pretty unusual. As it happens, I did have a suggestion for the book cover that involved using those paper chain dolls. This was all pretty vague, but my editor was on board with the idea, and somehow he managed to convince the art department, whose job it is to design the covers, to run with it. So they created a cover that used my paper chain idea and the Sabrosa Semesters title, and it was a real book cover. It was white and purple. The book got an ISBN number, which is the UPC number at the back of the book that identifies each individual book. The cover appeared in the Flux catalog, and it started showing up online in places like Amazon and Goodreads. Publication date was set for March of 2011. But then, in September of 2010, I got an email from my editor with the subject line, not making this up, small red alert. At this time in the US there were two major bookstore chains, Borders and Barnes & Noble. The gist of my editor's email was that buyers at both of the major national chains basically said, hell no, we're not buying a book with the title The Sabrosa Semesters. And the Borders buyer said, lose that cover. So now I was tasked with coming up with a new title for my book. and the cover, which had already started appearing all over the place online, was going to be completely redesigned. After much soul-searching and a whole lot of venting to friends and family, I finally came up with a list of alternative titles. One of those titles was popular, and that's what Flux decided to use. As for the cover, the art department did a complete redesign of the cover, which now involved no more paper dolls, and in fact was pretty much a complete night and day difference from the original cover. The result of all this was I no longer had to spell my title, define Latin roots, or get into obscure legal terminology when telling people what the title of my book was. Barnes & Noble did agree to stock Popular on their shelves. Borders' distaste for the original title and cover ended up mattering not a bit, since by the time my book came out, they were bankrupt and shutting stores at a frantic rate, and within a few months would cease to exist entirely. Oh, and my book, that was originally scheduled for a March release, got pushed back to May thanks to this switcherooing. A Google search of the Subrosa semesters reveals that this tongue-twister book still exists as a phantom book on the internet, even though it was never a real, live, actual book. So for those of you wondering who has the most input into book cover design, the answer is buyers at national bookstore chains, with some input from the publisher's art department. Popular's gone on to get a few international editions. They all have completely different covers than either of the original ones, and I had absolutely zero input into those covers. It's kind of interesting to see the way different artists have chosen to capture the spirit of the book. This is probably as informative as I'll get here on Awkward Author. I felt like with all the questions that authors get about their book covers, someone really needed to set the record straight. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to hit the like button or subscribe to my channel if you don't already. I put out new videos every week. Most of them are not this informative, but they all do relate somehow or other to writing or books or maybe just being awkward. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day.